Well, the title of the sermon is called The Subversive Wisdom in Jesus. When we talk about wisdom in the church, it's usually the conventional kind. Conventional wisdom is a kind where it reinforces the common belief among the people. It's when somebody says something and everybody in the room says, "That's right." You know, in the church, "Amen, brother," right? But on the other hand, the subversive wisdom is designed to make us feel uncomfortable because it questions our assumptions and our values, because it's trying to challenge the status quo. It's really trying to make your world upside down. And this is what we find in this passage. You know that story about manna that we read in Exodus? It's when God gave the people, his Israelites, 40 years of manna, right? That's a great example of a subversive wisdom. Why is that? The word manna gives it away. It means what? Like, what is this? And it has two meanings. On the surface, they didn't know what they were eating. So the manna could mean, what the heck am I eating? Right. But on another level, it was asking, what is going on here? I didn't sign up for this. The story is not simply about food or meeting their physical needs of the ancient Israelites. We see this because Moses gives these specific instructions on how to collect this free bread that was appearing in the morning. He says this, he says, you could only pick this up as much as you need for one day. You cannot store it overnight. You cannot hoard it. And people don't believe him. They're like, oh, I don't know if manna will come tomorrow, so I'm just going to hoard it. What they found out with the leftovers, they found maggots, and it was a mess. It was rancid. And then Moses tells them not only that you cannot hoard them, it will not appear on the day of rest on Sabbath. So you should collect twice as much on Friday. And then Saturday came, and the thing that collected on Friday, it didn't rot. This is a great example of subversive wisdom because the Israelites at the time were not even a people. They were former slaves. And they just got out of Egypt. And they were thrown into this place called Sinai Desert. In Arabic, it's called Hamsin, which means 50. Means 50 Celsius. Right? It is one of the driest places that I've ever visited. And they were stuck there. So naturally, they were interested in food. And that you cannot blame them. They were not interested in deep, profound theology. They were not interested in Bible study. Yet, through this, God teaches them about deep spiritual truth. 2 weeks ago, I had a wonderful time being part of VBS. Who's been part of VBS? You don't have to raise your hand. I usually volunteer as a guide. Because guides, we have different classes ranging from 3-year-olds all the way to 4th graders. And our job is very simple. Actually, it's one of the best things that I've ever been. It's like you take these groups and you just have fun with them and you lead them from one station to another, right? Because they have different stations. Well, this year, we didn't have a storyteller. So Jen was sitting back there and Marcy, they gently nudged me very nicely. So I couldn't refuse. And plus, they promised me volunteers who will help me. So I signed up. And we had a great time. The volunteers were great. These young guys they act out the stories. There are 5 stories. It tells about the discipleship development of the disciples. And on Monday, they were called into being fishers of people. And on Friday, they were sent off with a great commission. So on the last day, I summed up all, on Monday we learned about this, on Tuesday we learned about this, and Friday we learned about the Great Commission, and I wanted to make it practical, down to earth, make it. So I said, you know what the Great Commission means? It means that God gave us a purpose to love people and to teach that love to others. And the Great Commission doesn't mean you have to go to Syria or Africa to practice, but you can practice right here in your home. You know what? The lesson was going really swimmingly until that point. And you see people, like the kids going, huh? Right? You know that record goes, you can see it in their eyes. I said, you know what? To practice the Great Commission, you have to go home and start loving your family, which means you have to love your brother. And then people were like, whoa. And one kid raised his hand and goes, I don't have a brother. Duh. Like he's off the hook. I said, oh, well, you could love your sister. I said, oh, wow. And you know what it means? The Great Commission not only means loving your brothers or sister, it means loving your pet, your dogs, and your cats. And you can see the energy just rise back up. They're like, we love our pets! You know what loving your pets mean, guys? What? It means you gotta feed them. And more importantly, you gotta clean up after them. And then they're just face saying, oh. And then one guy goes, I don't do that, Pastor Keith. My dad does it. He looked at me like I had no idea what was going on in his life, right? But the biggest pushback came when I said, you know what the Great Commission means? To love your mom and dad. You know what that means? You gotta listen to them, and when they tell you something, you say, yes, Dad, yes, Mom. And you should have seen the face of the kids going, what? And one kid just said it, like a couple of kids says, it's really hard to obey our parents because they ask us for so much. And the struggle was really real. Because I tell you this story because, see, even kids in elementary, even kids who are just young as 5, the 4-year-olds are great. The 5, they do push back. They push back when you tell them something directly. You can't say things so directly because people resist. Going back to our text in John, the big elephant in the times of Jesus, when you read the Gospels, there are 3 things. One is the destruction of Jerusalem temple. That's when people read that, they always have that in mind. But the 2 things that are very relevant here today is that, one, the Roman occupation, right? And the lack of leadership, Jewish leadership to resist them. And the third, the really harsh economic environment that they were facing due to this burdening taxation by the Romans and the Herodians. So when Jesus comes, and he's building this reputation as a man of God, and people are saying, could this be the Messiah? And then he comes, and he converts a few loaves and fish, and he transforms and multiplies them to feed 5,000 men. It doesn't take a genius for them to connect the dot and say, wait a minute, we gotta make this guy the king. At that point, this is when they come and approach him, and they want to, by force, make him the king. And Jesus turns the whole situation upside down. Instead of presenting himself as the alpha guy, he compares himself to food and drink, like any little thing. It's like that. It's not something that rules over you. It's something that you consume. in this story, there's so much connection to manna. Jesus says, you talked about manna, but I am the true manna. And then he says, he wants to push a little further in terms of challenging their assumptions. He says, I am bread, my flesh is food, and my blood is drink. I mean, in any culture except for very few, cannibalism is repulsive. On top of that, in that culture, in the Hebrew Bible, as you know, it was absolutely forbidden to eat flesh with blood. I mean, that was just the most, you're just not going against common sense. You're going against God. Right? So when Jesus says, you know what? You don't expect me to be king? Well, I am manna. I am bread. And not just bread. My flesh is bread, and my blood is drink. Jesus was pushing their blood. He was trying to provoke them into thinking, into challenging their underlying belief, which was they had a propensity, just like us, to worship power, strength, ability. And he showed them that he was. And he wanted them, they wanted him to be their king. But yet Jesus says, you know what? You want God? You want God in your life? God is in the most ordinary, the common things that he's working actively in your life. Today, let me make a little bit of commercial about the youth groups. Today, at the youth group, we'll watch a video of someone named Mark Iaconelli giving a short sermon. And Mark Iaconelli is, you might not know him, but he's a very famous guy because his dad, Mike Iaconelli, is the guy in youth ministry. Like, he's like Billy Graham of youth ministry. And the thing that he said, his father, Mike says, boredom is one of the greatest sins in youth ministry. So he made it a cultural thing. Like, if you go to any youth group in America, they play games. You know why they play games? Because of Mike Iaconelli. That was his thing. Make it exciting for kids. Because they won't come unless you make it exciting. Well, his son, Mark, just took the opposite approach. He emphasizes contemplative ministry for youth. You know what contemplative is? Even adults get bored. They fall asleep. I've been to many contemplative sections, and people are just falling asleep. Just close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out, focus on Jesus. It's just very, but he does that because he realizes this. And he tells us that we need to slow down. And he tells a story about his second son, Joey, who had this, he said his son is always slow. Not slow in mind, but intentionally, he just does not like to hurry. They'd be walking because he had to take his son to school, with him to school, and then he'd get to go to his job. So he had to get there, right? And it's like a mile or half-mile walk. And his son is like, first son just walks and wants to get there. But Joey, look, Dad, there's a beautiful bark here. Isn't that? Son, there's like about 10,000 barks along the road, okay? Oh my God, there's like, somebody threw a yogurt cup in there and it could make a good pirate's chalice, Dad. Hey, Joe, we gotta go, right? And that's the kind of guy, he just makes you slow down, notices everything. And one day, Joey comes and goes to his dad, goes, Dad, I made a club at my school. It's called the Slow Club. Really? I'm the president, Dad. Wow, great. How many people in it? 0. Only me. Well, what are the rules? Well, there are only 2 rules. 1, you can't run. 2, you can't hurry. And so those 2 rules, even for kids, was very difficult. So he didn't get anybody, right? And one day, Joey comes to his dad and says, Dad, I got a news for you. I want to make you an honorary member of the Slow Club for one day. Can you do that, Dad? That's like, one day, what's going to hurt, right? One day. Well, as it turned out, it was one of those weeks where he had to take him to a camp, and they was doing sports stuff. And during lunch, everybody stops at 12, and they had to line up at this line to get lunch. If you don't get there early, you're going to be waiting for a long time, and you won't get that lunch in time. You won't even enjoy it because you waited a long line. So Mark goes, son, it's 12, let's go. Let's get... And his son goes, Dad, you're in the Slow Club now. You can't run. You can't hurry. Mark's like, but yeah, you're right, just one day I'll do this. So he slows down, and everybody's just rushing past him. Everybody's rushing past him. And he's walking this field, and he's walking very slowly, and his son's like, oh, no, no. And then he goes, look, Dad, look. Turns around. See those 2 prairie dogs over there in the woods? I bet you nobody saw that except for us too. And what Mark is trying to say in the Slow Club is that we tend to want to get where we want to go. We got things to do. And we tend to look at God as we want God to be spectacular. Like God is almighty, powerful, omniscient, all that. So when there's something very powerful and extraordinary, that's what God is. But what Jesus is being subversive is that, look, you guys are looking for me to be the Alpha God. You're looking for me because you're looking for me as Son of God or the Messiah or the chosen one because I did this spectacular things, and you want me to take you out of your misery because you've been thinking, where was God in all this situation when the Romans are coming and our leaders are failing, and we don't know where God is, but now we see definitely God working in you. And Jesus turns that around and says, God is in your bread. It's in your drink. It's in your air. There are 10,000 miracles that God performs in our lives every day. And the eternity starts at this moment when you understand His abundant love for you. In the most smallest, in the most common, in the most mundane things. That was His message. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.